Hello, I am Julie Rowlett from City and Guilds and ILM, and I'm here today with John Climpson from Invictus Leadership, a provider of leadership coaching, training and consultancy services. And we are here today to talk about leadership coaching and in particular, the leadership competence framework that John has developed. So John, really welcome and thanks very much for your time today. Can you tell me, what do you think are some of the current challenges for leaders and managers?
Yeah, sure. So I think from my experience, there are clear issues for leaders, especially around the pace of change, hyper-connected technology, and of course, things like the cost of living and wars that are going on in the world. But through my research, I discovered that even to this day, there is still a real challenge with the amount of failing leaders, high performers who are fundamentally unprepared when they move into new or advanced leadership positions. And what I found is that this is really down to two key issues: a lack of personal confidence in themselves and a lack of leadership competence. So the knowledge, skills and behaviours required for them to operate at the new level that they're going into. Some of the reasons for these issues include an inability to think at scale, failure to adopt the correct leadership behaviours, still being task orientated or thinking reactively like they need to do with operations. So there's still quite a few sort of fundamental leadership problems that people are facing, and you might hear buzzwords such as imposter syndrome, the accidental leader, reactive leadership. These are ways that people are trying to sort of label and explain the reasons that people are still having problems when they're moving into new roles.
Right, so that's a really helpful summary of some of the current challenges that leaders and managers are facing. So how do you think coaching can help new and aspiring leaders and managers to develop their skills and knowledge?
Yeah, sure. So if I think back to 10 or 15 years ago, coaching was still quite new and juvenile in the UK commerce, but it's playing a far greater role, especially in leadership development activities. The coaching approach has sort of transcended beyond just a one-to-one activity where you have a coach and a coachee, and is now being intrinsically embedded within degree, masters and apprenticeship programs and other forms of longer-term learning. I generally find coaching's a very powerful mechanism to create a safe space for leaders and managers to reflect and learn from their experiences, where there's so much noise going on in the world, such a fast pace. Actually slowing them down and getting them to think a bit more deliberately can help. This can challenge their conventional thinking, can help them develop a more positive mindset, and really enhance that person's capacity for growth. I think most importantly, when we think about coaching a leader, it helps them to develop knowledge, skills and behaviours through their own lens. So rather than having to follow that trodden path that may no longer be suitable or may be very outdated, it's giving them a greater degree of ownership and accountability for their own developmental journey.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, and it's great to see the growth and I think how coaching is still very, very much emerging and helping leaders develop. So, John, you've developed this leadership competence framework. So could you tell us a little bit more about it and how it supports leaders and managers to develop their capabilities through a coaching relationship?
Leadership competence can be formed of the knowledge, skills and behaviours required to perform effectively in any given role. I've developed a 4-stage competency framework through my research with leaders during significant periods of change and progression within their career. The framework acts as a guide for a leader or manager's developmental journey, aligning itself with situational and behavioural approaches to leadership. So we're considering that we can develop our leadership capabilities whilst also having the ability to choose our approach within a given situation. So within the model, there's 4 key areas of competence: cognitive competence, emotional competence, social competence, and something called meta competence, or more simply put, thinking, feeling, behaving, and learning. So if I just take you through each of those stages and just sort of get you to think about how we can develop those as leaders. Cognitive competence is concerned with developing a greater degree of rational thinking in order to deliver more impactful outcomes as a leader. It's considering the ability to think through the perceptions of myself and of others, to utilise evidence and research in order to think critically, and then more broad thinking, where I'm using something called divergent thinking, where I'm promoting innovation in the way that I think and thinking more laterally. Finally, something called metacognition, which is the way we think about our thought process. So we're actually thinking about, slowing down and how we're actually going to make a decision. So this is really about the way we think as a leader. Emotional competence focuses on the development of a more authentic and relationship-focused leadership approach. It considers emotionality within ourselves through having a base level of awareness of our own emotions, developing a greater degree of personal self-confidence, understanding and enhancing our own self-esteem, so the way that we perceive ourselves, and then finally emotional expression, which is how we can share our emotions with others. So this is really about how we feel as a leader. So those are both very much internal. If we then look more external, we've got social competence, which acts as a mechanism to develop a broader degree of influence, right from influencing myself through to organisationally and beyond. Firstly, we found that a leader must identify and define their own approach to leadership. They must consider their communication skills interpersonally, be aware how they influence the organisational culture and how a culture might influence their approach to leadership. Finally, and I think this is really important for more senior leaders, thinking about the impact beyond their actions in a moment. How does their actions impact broader society? And that's really important with sustainability at the moment. Then finally, metacompetence considers the higher level competencies required for future growth, such as the ability to reflect, to learn from our experiences for continued growth, and ultimately the creation of new thinking within ourselves. So the great thing about this framework is that it has a multitude of applications. It can help a leader wanting to develop themselves, acting as a guide for them. It would provide a coach with a framework of thinking for use with their clients, or it could even be utilised as a structure for broader L&D programs. So if you'd like to find out more about the model or the work that we're doing, please go to www.invictusleadership.co.uk, or please feel free to drop me a message on LinkedIn.
Great, thanks very much, John. And that was really interesting and really great to hear about the depth of research that you've done there, and indeed about the framework. So thank you very much for your time today, and I'm sure people will be following up with you directly. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie.
Thank you.